Yeah.
Of the Isles of Samoa, and to truly understand it, we've got to go all the way back to the beginning. Chapter 1, Blood Beginnings. The Samoan dynasty can be traced back to one man, Fanini Laifi Peter Maivia, better known to wrestling fans as High Chief Peter Maivia. Taking living the gimmick one step further, High Chief wasn't just a wrestling nickname where you can just say something and pretend it's true, like main event Jey Uso or Big Penis Ollie Davis. Maivia's tattoos that covered his stomach and legs were a symbol of his actual Samoan High Chief status. We couldn't find any official confirmation on that though. We even looked up the royal family he was supposedly descended from and couldn't find any mention of him, but he is frequently referred to as royalty by articles and in interviews. Anyway, at 20 years old, Maivia decided to leave American Samoa to begin a pro wrestling career in New Zealand, and well, he was pretty successful. He went on to become a multi-time champion in various NWA territories and the AWA, where he became close friends with superstar Billy Graham. In 1977, Maivia joined the WWF, where he would work main event programs with his friend Billy and Bob Backlund, who he'd eventually turn heel on in 1978. But Maivia wasn't just a pro wrestler. Set in a trend his grandkid would later follow, he was also an actor. He actually appears in my favourite James Bond movie ever, You Only Live Twice. That's right, I said it. You can do one, Skyfall, where he used his pro wrestling knowledge to also be the film's stunt coordinator. Look, there he is, playing a Japanese man despite not being Japanese. I'm sure that's the last time any of his Samoan relatives will be cast as a Japanese person. Maivia has actually been immortalised in the movies beyond Bond, as The Rock himself has revealed his granddad was the basis for his Maui character design in the Disney film Moana. It was while Maivia was living in California, though, that he met someone else from Samoa, a man by the name Amituanai Anawai, the Grand Patriarch of the Anawai family. The two men became so close, they decided to become blood brothers, which in Samoa means far more than just bleeding with someone, otherwise John Moxley would be related to everyone. The underlying concept of Samoan culture is called Far Samoa, which translates to the Samoan way. It's the traditional way of life in Samoa, and it encompasses the fundamentals of respect, family, and spirituality. But don't take it from me, here's David Tuanay, founder of the Samoan Cultural Center.
That's still part of their identity is Samoa. So family is a very integral part of our psyche, right? We don't survive without our family. And so we do everything that we can to care for our family, take care of these relationships and these bonds that we have.
In Samoan culture, family isn't limited to those who share DNA or come from the same bloodline. It can include adopted connections as long as they all acknowledge the matai, or head of the family. And that's what happened with Peter Maivia and Amituanai Anawai. When they became blood brothers, their two respective families, the Maivias and the Anawais, essentially adopted each other, forming one big super family. Like that time the corporation merged with the ministry. I think the Samoan dynasty had begun. In the late 70s, Maivia moved to Hawaii and purchased the NWA Polynesian Pro Wrestling territory. He passed away in 1982, aged just 45, after a battle with cancer, giving way to the next generation of Samoan wrestling.
You mean the generation where Samoa Joe's in it?
No, Samoa Joe isn't related to any of the people I'm talking about here. He's not related to anyone. Chapter 2, A Rocky Relationship. With Maivia's passing, his wife Leah Maivia took over running PPW, becoming one of wrestling's first female promoters. If one story about her is to be believed, she was in for quite a shock, as, despite being married to a pro wrestler, she thought wrestling was real. According to The Rock, at the beginning of Maivia's career, he never told Leah that wrestling was scripted. Apparently, when Maivia was being worked over in a match in San Francisco, Leah got so distressed, she got in the ring and tried to beat up his opponent with a wooden clog. Who throws a clog? Peter was then forced to reveal to Leah that wrestling is scripted, yelling at her to stop in Samoan because his opponent was actually his friend. While the High Chief was alive, he befriended and started a tag team with another wrestler called Rocky Johnson, a candidate for Wrestling Mustache Hall of Fame. Johnson had initially trained to be a boxer where he sparred with Muhammad Ali and George Foreman, but became a pro wrestler in 1964. Although he was married with 2 kids, Rocky started seeing Peter Maivia's daughter, Atta, who he met while teaming with her dad. Extra confusing side note, Atta is the adopted daughter of Peter Maivia, as Leah had her in a previous relationship. Anyway, the High Chief disapproved of their romance. Apparently not because of Rocky's other family, but because Rocky was a wrestler like him, and he knows how naughty those wrestlers can be, deciding Johnson couldn't provide a stable life for his daughter. This caused a year-long rift in the family. Because of the Samoan way, based on everyone acknowledging the head of the family, Johnson and Atta eloped, an act of disrespect, and were estranged from the rest of the family until the birth of their first child in 1972, who, for now, we'll just call the Pebble. Rocky went on to become one of the most important figures in wrestling history, having NWA feuds in the 70s with the likes of Harley Race and Terry Funk, and teaming with Tony Atlas in the WWF to become the promotion's first black tag team champions in 1983. But who did they beat to win those titles? The High Chief Peter Maivia's real-life adopted nephews, Afa and Sika Anoa'i, aka the Wild Samoans. This is the OG bloodline story. Right now we're going to go up to the Maivia side of the family, to the top there with Peter, and over to the Anoa'i side with 2 of his 6 children, Afa and Sika. As the legend goes, before Afa and Sika became wrestlers, they were part of a large group of Samoan fans who would go to wrestling shows in San Francisco. Attend being a light description of what they were doing. According to Sika himself, they were so rowdy they were approached to become wrestlers because they were too dangerous to leave as marks, which is the nice term the wrestling industry uses for fans. After wrestling in Canada and America through the 70s, mostly in NWA territories, they signed with WWF in 1989, initially as just the Samoans. Both would wrestle Bob Backlund for the WWF Championship, and they won the tag titles 3 times. And it was during this period they became backstage friends with Paul E. Dangerously. That's right, Paul Heyman has actually been associated with the Samoan dynasty for over 40 years. By the end of the 80s, this behind-the-scenes friendship would become an on-screen act, when Heyman ended up managing the Samoan SWAT team, which was made up of Afa's son Samu Anoa'i and his nephew Solafa Fatu Jr., who would go on to become the next generation of Samoan wrestling stars in the 90s.
Like Samoa Joe.
No, goddammit, Luke.
I'm sorry, I know you've said this before. TNA was in the 2000s, so he's coming up soon.
No! He's not part of this family. How many times have I got this? Chapter 3, A Rock and a Hard Place. The Samoan SWAT team was signed by the WWF in 1992 and immediately underwent a pro wrestling rite of passage, given the far less cool, slightly racist new name. No longer with Heyman as their manager, Samu's father Afa managed them in the early days until Samu left to heal from injuries, which WWF gave the storyline explanation that he wasn't coping well with Captain Lou Albano's attempts to civilize him. Fatu has since gone on the record to say he really didn't like the savage aspect of the gimmick. Fatu carried on first in a brief run as the new Head Shrinkers. Look, they've got the Barbarian now, and then a failed repackaging as a positive influence for disadvantaged youths. But the worst was yet to come, when Fatu got the disastrous new gimmick, the Sultan, which somehow lasted from 1996 to 1998, including an Intercontinental Championship match at WrestleMania 13 against some bloke called Rocky Maivia. Huh, that sounds familiar. run of bad gimmicks was about to change, as in 1999 the Sultan returned under the new name Rikishi Fatu, becoming one of the most iconic mid-carders of the Attitude Era and the guy who attempted to murder Stone Cold Steve Austin. Back earlier in the 90s though, while Rikishi was still trying to find the right gimmick, another member of the Samoan dynasty was ruling the company. Another nephew and wrestling student of Afa and Sika, Rodney Anoa'i, went through a bunch of different names. The Giant Kakina, the Great Kakian, and Kakina the Samoan. He wrestled in New Japan, teaming with Vader, Owen Hart, and his real-life cousin Samu under the Samoan SWAT team name, and he signed with WWF at the same time as Samu and Rikishi, wrestling one house show as his previous gimmick Kakina before he was repackaged into his iconic character, Yokozuna, the sumo wrestler. Between 1992 and 1994, Yokozuna was one of the most prolific wrestlers in WWF, winning the 1993 Royal Rumble, main eventing WrestleMania, and becoming the first ever WWF champion of Samoan descent. They didn't say that at the time though, because they were pretending he was Japanese. He also won the tag team titles twice, again teaming with Owen Hart. Unfortunately, Yokozuna's run in WWF was cut short, as in trying to portray the sumo wrestler character, he gained too much weight, which started to affect his in-ring work. WWF took action and sent both Yokozuna and Vader to a weight loss facility, but it didn't really work, because they would apparently sneak out at night to go eat fried chicken. They actually finished weight loss camp by gaining more weight. Concerned for his health, WWF released Yokozuna, but said they'd rehire him if he could slim down to 400 pounds. He never did. Yokozuna died in the year 2000 at the age of just 34. Remember back in 1972 when Rocky Johnson eloped with Atta Maivia and High Chief Peter Maivia disapproved, estranging them all and only reconciling with them upon the birth of their child? Well, by this point, that pebble, he's all grown up. Okay, right, let's go all the way back up, hop over to the Maivia side, down 2 generations, and there we are. Rock the Dwayne Johnson. Johnson began wrestling in 1996 after his football career didn't pan out. Pat Patterson got him some WWF tryout matches after realizing he was a natural, where he wrestled under his own name and the other gimmick of Flex Kavana. Flex Kavana. Why did he not stick with that one? That's such a good name. Johnson is one of the only people in the Samoan dynasty not to be trained by Afa, Sika, or Rikishi, because he was instead being trained by his father, Rocky Johnson, and Pat Patterson. Apparently, Rocky never wanted Dwayne to follow in his footsteps, but if he was to become a wrestler, he'd be the one to train him. Johnson was fast-tracked to a WWF debut later that year as Rocky Maivia and was pushed hard. Arguably too hard, becoming the sole survivor in his debut match at Survivor Series 1996 and winning the Intercontinental Championship in early 1997, a title he would then defend at WrestleMania 13 against the Sultan, who would then become Rikishi, his second cousin. Maivia was billed as the first third-generation superstar coming after Rocky Johnson and Peter Maivia. His one-dimensional good guy character wasn't working out though, so when Rocky returned from an injury in 1998, he turned heel and debuted The Rock name. He would go on to become one of the biggest stars in professional wrestling history, becoming a multi-time world champion, main eventing WrestleMania many times over, and having arguably the most iconic WrestleMania feud in wrestling history against Stone Cold Steve Austin. In Samoan culture, The Rock also became a High Chief, being given the title Son of Malietoa, which means son of a king. He is also the real-life chief of the Suili family. Outside of wrestling though, also like his grandfather, he became an actor, where he would eventually become one of the most bankable Hollywood megastars on the planet. That took a while to happen though, as Rock had to pay his dues with the likes of the Tooth Fairy. Side note, Southern Tales is brilliantly bonkers though, but that meant Rock's run at the top of the WWF only lasted about 4 years, as he started to transition into acting in 2001 with The Mummy Returns, leaving the next decade to the Anoa'i branch of the dynasty.
Where Samoa Joe comes in.
How can I distract Luke for the next 4 minutes? Hey Luke, I bet you can't name every Limp Bizkit single in chronological order.
Oh, come on, at least give me a challenge. You start with Counterfeit from $3 Bill Y'all, then you move into which, of course, starts with Nookie. You'd then think it's Break Stuff, wouldn't you think it's Break Stuff? But you'd be wrong again, it's actually End Together.
It's time to bust out your frosted tips, because it's the noughties.
Then you get into...
Chapter 4, the zeroed line. We tried to put zeros for the noughties instead of the O's for the year. It works better written down. Matthew Tupunuu Anawai was the son of Seeker of the Wild Samoans and made his pro wrestling debut in 1995 under names like Matty Smalls and Mac Daddy Kane. Matthew trained alongside his cousin Eddie Fatu, the brother of Rikishi. They were both signed to WWF developmental contracts in 2001 and were sent to a then feeder promotion called Heartland Wrestling Association. They wrestled there under the tag team name The Island Boys. Boys spelt with a Z. Because it was 2001.
Which is the correct way to spell it. And then the final single is Bad Vibes off the latest album, Still Sucks. That is every single with 0 strikes. Come on now. You can never go wrong with
right? The brothers were called up to the main roster in 2002, where they made their WWE debut as 3 Minute Warning. Matthew was now called Rosie, and Eddie wrestled as Jamal. Their gimmick was that they'd attack people on Eric Bischoff's request, giving them a 3 Minute warning, which included people like D'Lo Brown, Lillian Garcia, and perhaps most infamously, 2 lesbians. Again, it was the early noughties. In 2003, though, Eddie Fatu was released from WWE when he got involved in a bar fight, but he continued to wrestle in NWA TNA and All Japan Pro Wrestling until 2005.
He's renamed to Samoa Joe!
No, do the Limp Bizkit thing again, but in Fred Durst's voice.
You start with Counterfeit, then you move into the next album, and
Luke's wrong, because in 2006, Fatu would return to WWE with his now iconic gimmick, Umaga. He was pushed hard, wrestling the likes of Ric Flair, Triple H, Shawn Michaels and Jeff Hardy, winning the Intercontinental Championship twice, and even being involved in one of the biggest angles the company had ever done, representing Vince McMahon against Donald Trump's Bobby Lashley in the Battle of the Billionaires. You might have thought getting released earlier in his career for a real-life fight would have made him change his ways, but during a match with jackasses Steve-O and Chris Pontius, Umaga started shooting on them because he felt they weren't selling enough. Here's Steve-O's own recollection of that night.
I felt like he was just hitting me so hard. And then the last move that we discussed happens, and then like it's supposed to be over, but he's still hitting me. And I didn't know. I didn't know that he was hitting me because I wasn't playing dead. And I didn't know I was supposed to play dead.
Meanwhile, Rosie had stayed in WWE. He became a comedy act with the Hurricane as his superhero in training, which if you spell out the initials, spells shit. They overcame the literally shit gimmick though, getting over with the fans and winning the tag titles at Backlash 2005. But in 2006, Rosie was released from WWE because of similar concerns they had about his cousin Yokozuna a decade earlier. WWE felt he was too heavy and was becoming a danger to himself and others. In 2007, he was a contestant on the show Fat March, but didn't finish the season. Aside from sporadic appearances in All Japan through 2006 and 2007, Rosie didn't wrestle beyond his WWE tenure, instead opening a restaurant in Florida. Both Rosie and Umaga's lives were cut tragically short. In 2009, after being released from WWE due to repeated failures of the wellness policy and refusal to attend rehab, Umaga suffered a heart attack as a result of repeated drug use and passed away at the age of just 36. And in 2017, Rosie died aged 47 due to complications related to congestive heart failure, something which had been plaguing him since 2014. But in an incredibly interesting note, on the same day Umaga passed away, on December 4th, 2009, his nephews Jonathan and Joshua Fatu signed developmental contracts with WWE. But you might know them by a different name. Jimmy and Jay, the Usos. Before I talk about the Usos, this video would not be possible without the amazing support of our Patreons. This took a lot of time to research, write and edit. Shout out to Kelly, Pete. Say hi, Pete.
Hello, hi, it's me.
Luke, me, of course, Brandon and Ellis for all working on this video. If you've enjoyed it so far, please consider supporting us on Patreon yourself. While you'll get loads of exclusive video content like Wrestle Talk Extra, that's where Luke and I do a deep dive into wrestling history, and survival series Thunderdome, a remote version of everyone's favourite wrestling trivia show. Go to patreon.com/WrestleTalk to check all that out. Thank you. Chapter 5, The Modern Era Bloodline. While the Usos are the sons of Rikishi, they have credited their uncle Umaga for saving their lives. Because Rikishi was away on the road so much when they were growing up, Umaga became like a father figure to them. And it was Umaga who turned up at their home one day in Florida, having driven there all the way from Texas, where he told them to quit their jobs to become wrestlers with him in Houston. They left to start training the next day. They began wrestling in 2007, got signed to WWE in 2009, and debuted on the main roster in 2010, where they would win the tag championships 8 times, setting the longest title reign record at 622 days, thanks to their excellent chemistry with the New Day. For a decade, Jimmy would also marry fellow WWE star Naomi in 2014, adding another pro wrestler into the family. But their biggest wrestling moment was yet to come, when in 2020, for the first real time in WWE history, the Samoan dynasty was directly inserted into kayfabe. After this whole video talking about the Samoan dynasty bloodline, it's finally time to talk about the bloodline and their head of the table. Laity Joseph Anoa'i is the son of Sika of the Wild Samoans and younger brother of Rosie. Despite technically being one generation above the Usos, I'm so confused. Joe Anoa'i grew up with them because they were all born 3 months apart. In fact, Jimmy and Jay were only born 9 minutes apart. What are the chances? The three did everything together, including going to high school together and playing football together. So after a few off-season stints with NFL teams in 2007 and 8, Joe decided to join his cousins in WWE in 2010. He began wrestling in FCW as Laiki, or Roman Laiki, where he once won a triple threat to fight for the promotion's top title, which he never won. His opponents in that triple threat? Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins. When FCW rebranded to NXT in 2012, Roman Laiki was renamed to Roman Reigns. He made his main roster debut shortly after with Rollins and Ambrose as The Shield, who would go on to become arguably the greatest 3-person faction in WWE, nay, wrestling history. And then came the bad times. Just a year after The Shield broke up in 2014, Reigns had become the new trendy guy to hate. Fans resisted his mega push, which saw world title wins, WrestleMania main events, Royal Rumble victories, and a suffering succotash promo. All it took was a global pandemic to turn things around. Roman had battled with leukemia in 2018, deeming him immunocompromised at the start of the pandemic. Despite being set for a WrestleMania 36 match against Goldberg, he instead stayed away from wrestling for half a year. During that time, he started talking to his dad's good friend, Paul Heyman, on what a totally revamped version of his character would look like. With Heyman by his side, Reigns returned to WWE at SummerSlam 2020 with a new bad guy persona, winning the Universal Championship 1 week later at Payback. And this is where the bloodline begins. Roman began referring to himself as the Tribal Chief and the Head of the Table, names that were specifically used as long-term seeds for a match against The Rock. But before then, his first Universal title defense was against none other than his real-life cousin, Jey Uso, where, after decades of WWE ignoring their wrestlers' Samoan heritage, or sometimes just calling them Japanese, Far Samoa, the Samoan way, took center stage. Familial bonds, blood-related or otherwise, take priority in Samoan culture, and they all must acknowledge the Matai, the head of the family. and that role is a vital one for the family and community in Samoan culture. Here's David Tuanei of the Samoan Cultural Centre again to explain more.
There's a saying in Samoa, ole ala le pule, ole tautua. And what that means is the road to authority is through service. This idea that the greatest among us is the least, right? The greatest among us is the servant among us. It's meant to be a service mentality. So as the head of the family, right? There's many responsibilities that fall on you to be able to make sure that the family is organized and functioning properly, right? So the head of the family is the father of the family. So we call them the father of the family. And they're bestowed a title to govern or have authority to govern this particular family.
Even more than the universal title itself, it was that role of Matai that Reigns and Jey Uso first began feuding over. Jey would take issue with Roman's new heel tactics, but Reigns would explain he had to do these things as he wasn't just providing for his own family, but for Jey's family, for Jimmy's family, for everybody in the Samoan dynasty. He was the Matai. He sees himself as a servant of the family. It's something that has fallen to him, that he didn't choose this life, which is another important facet of the character.
The way that one becomes a chief is just that. Meaning that the road to authority is through service. So individuals that display a certain amount, that serve the family, right? That put time and effort to try to keep the family going, doing the chores, all these other things, are individuals that other family members will recognize and say, hey, that's a person that has displayed that their heart is in the right place, that they're about the family and making sure that the family is taken care of, and that they're not seeking out their own glory or their own opportunities, right? Their own agenda, personal agenda.
Reigns sees the work he's done for the past 8 years, his time in the Shield, the main events, the championship feuds, all of it while being the most hated man in wrestling. That was his sacrifice. That was what he was willing to do for the family. He has earned the title of Tribal Chief. Now he just needs everyone to acknowledge him.
The way a chief is selected is by family consent. Even if it was father to son, they still present the son to the family and seek the family's consent. Traditionally, the families would seek 100% consent for this title passing from father to son.
100% consent. This completely reframes Roman's "acknowledge me" catchphrase. It's not just a couple of words to make the crowd pop, it's the entire core of his character. He is the tribal chief, but he needs everyone to acknowledge that, otherwise he has no authority. A chief without a tribe. Here's a clip from Paul Heyman's amazing interview with Rick Rubin, which I can't recommend enough, talking about acknowledgement.
He stumbles onto things. The acknowledge me was a stumble.
That's the best. It's the best.
We were trying to figure out, what does he really... Because his first storyline as champion was with his cousin Jay. And Roman had said, well, you know what I really want from Jay? I don't want his love. I have that. I don't want his admiration. I don't even want his obedience. I'll take that from him. You know what I need? I'm the head of the table. I am the tribal chief. I need him to acknowledge it. And the moment he said it, we all got chills. Because we knew this is bigger than this moment. Yeah. This is the declarative statement. This is the definition of the character. What does the character want? What does the tribal chief need? What does the head of the table seek? Acknowledgement.
But what happens when someone in Roman's family doesn't acknowledge him? In their first match at Clash of the Champions Gold Rush in 2020, Jey Uso refused to submit. Even though Reigns beat the ever-loving piss out of him, Jey refused to bend to Reigns' will. He didn't acknowledge him, Reigns didn't get 100% consent. Which is why when Roman was about to be officially crowned as the tribal chief on the next SmackDown, he refused, explaining,
I don't want you to acknowledge me as the tribal chief because He didn't acknowledge me. His brother acknowledged me, but he...
This brings back memories.
This is why the rematch at Hell in a Cell 2020 was an I Quit match, because Roman needed Jay to verbally acknowledge him. But in the course of that match, Reigns realised Jay would never yield, so he weaponized the very concept of family against him, attacking Jay's then injured brother Jimmy until Jay quit. Only then was Reigns able to walk up the stage to officially be crowned the tribal chief by Afa and Sika, the Wild Samoans, his uncle and father. 100% consent. 2 years later, at Clash at the Castle 2022, Rikishi's other son, Joseph Yokozuna Fatu, his middle name from his cousin's wrestling gimmick, would join the Bloodline faction as Solo Sikoa. And if Roman ever needs more recruits, he need look no further than his next family barbecue. Because on the independent wrestling scene, there's Afa's three sons, Samu, Manu, and LA Smooth, Tonga Kid's kid, Jacob Fatu. Oh yeah, I didn't even get to cover Rikishi and Umaga's older brother Samuel Fatu, who wrestled as the Samoan Savage and Tonga Kid in the 80s in WWF, where they claimed he was the cousin of Jimmy Snuka, who is not related to anyone in the dynasty, he's from Fiji, and Umaga's son Zilla Fatu, Rikishi's other son Jeremiah Fatu, Samu's son Lance Anoa'i, and Afa's nephew Shawn Maluta, who had wrestled in WWE's Cruiserweight Classic tournament. There's also The Rock's daughter Simone Johnson, who became NXT's general manager Ava Raine at just 22 years old. And what about Nia Jax, who is the daughter of Peter Maivia's cousin, meaning she's technically one generation above The Rock. Oh, and actually Jimmy Snuka is related, by marriage, having been married to Peter Maivia's niece, Sharon, which means that Jimmy Snuka's children, Tamina and Sim Snuka, or Deuce, are Peter Maivia's great niece and nephew respectively. And despite not being blood related, The Rock has gone on record to say that he considers Tonga Uli Uli Fafita, or commonly known as Haku, his uncle. And understanding that in The Rock's Samoan culture, that bond means just as much as if they were blood related, even if they're not Samoan. Which means we also need to include Haku's sons Tamatonga, Tangaloa, and Hikaleo, and their cousin Bad Luck Fale. And Roman Reigns himself has 5 children, including 2 sets of twin brothers, along with Jimmy's 2 children, Jay's 2 children, Solo Sikoa's 2 children, The Rock's 2 other children. The Samoan dynasty isn't going anywhere in wrestling. And Samoa Joe. Oh, God! Hello and welcome to Table. Jimmy needed Jay to verbally acknowledge him, but in the course of that match, Reigns realised Jay would never yield, so he weaponized the very concept of family against him, attacking Jay's then injured brother Jimmy until Jay quit. Only then was Reigns able to walk up the stage to officially be crowned the tribal chief by Afa and Sika, the Wild Samoans, his uncle and father. 100% consent. 2 years later, at Clash at the Castle 2022, Rikishi's other son, Joseph Yokozuna Fatu, his middle name from his cousin's wrestling gimmick, would join the Bloodline faction as Solo Sikoa. And if Roman ever needs more recruits, he need look no further than his next family barbecue. Because on the independent wrestling scene, there's Afa's 3 sons, Samu, Manu, and LA Smooth, Tonga Kid's kid, Jacob Fatu. Oh yeah, I didn't even get to cover Rikishi and Umaga's older brother Samuel Fatu, who wrestled as the Samoan Savage and Tonga Kid in the 80s in WWF, where they claimed he was the cousin of Jimmy Snuka, who is not related to anyone in the dynasty, he's from Fiji, and Umaga's son Zilla Fatu, Rikishi's other son Jeremiah Fatu, Samu's son Lance Anoa'i, and Afa's nephew Shawn Maluta, who had wrestled in WWE's Cruiserweight Classic tournament. There's also The Rock's daughter Simone Johnson, who became NXT's general manager Ava Raine at just 22 years old. And what about Nia Jax, who is the daughter of Peter Maivia's cousin, meaning she's technically one generation above The Rock. Oh, and actually Jimmy Snuka is related, by marriage, having been married to Peter Maivia's niece, Sharon, which means that Jimmy Snuka's children, Tamina and Sim Snuka, or Deuce, are Peter Maivia's great niece and nephew respectively. And despite not being blood related, The Rock has gone on record to say that he he considers Tonga Uli Uli Fafita, or commonly known as Haku, his uncle. And understanding that in the Rock Samoan culture, that bond means just as much as if they were blood related, even if they're not Samoan. Which means we also need to include Haku's sons Tamatonga, Tangaloa, and Hikaleo, and their cousin Bad Luck Fale. And Roman Reigns himself has 5 children, including 2 sets of twin brothers, along with Jimmy's 2 children, Jay's 2 children, Solo Sikoa's 2 children, The Rock's 2 other children. The Samoan dynasty isn't going anywhere in wrestling. And Samoa Joe. Oh, God! Hello and welcome to Tables,
Lists.
and Chairs.
Welcome back to another episode of TLC here on Wrestling. Thank you so much for checking out the video. If it's your first time here at TLC, here's how it goes. The three of us being me, Pete, I'm joined by Luke, hello, and Sullivan, hello. We're back.
Today on Not Sam Wrestling, as the Royal Rumble rapidly approaches, we look at the myriad of...
Which made sure The Rock knows who runs this place. I can smell what the Helms is cooking. People, this is exactly what we wanted WWE to be. There's a lot of drama, a lot of realism, breaking the fourth wall. It feels like WWE television is must-watch again. But you know what? I want to celebrate something. I want to celebrate the fact that these two are not beefing anymore. Since The Rock is on the board now, everybody is united, man. And this is beautiful. 2 general managers, 2 hearts, 4 mega-sized testicles. No, that brings a tear in your eye. Seriously though, it seems like what WWE are going for is WWE management, basically Triple H's team, versus The Rock's team. Not only are we getting a fight between Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes, we're also getting a fight between Triple H and The Rock. I think this is going to be really, really interesting. So welcome back to greatness of SmackDown, and that's how the show kicked off with the CCO of the WWE, Triple H. First of all, he bragged about all the views the conference got. He said he's really, really happy with the WWE right now, but he's here to clear up one thing. Everybody's chanting Rocky sucks. Everybody's chanting Cody. And again, just look at this. Nick Aldis and Adam Pearce in the same ring, no beef whatsoever, and they were actually really friendly during the entire show. So this basically tells me that, you know, The Rock is the bigger issue. So all of these guys united. Triple H says some people don't know their role, which is of course a reference to a certain wrestler, Vladimir Kozlov. Triple H feels like certain people try to assert their authority when they don't really have any. Ooh, go at it, papa. Triple H says, I don't really care where you sit. Again, referencing The Rock. There is one thing that is abundantly clear here, whether people like it or not. The answers come from one place and one place only. And right now you are looking at him. Hell yeah. Hell yeah, it's all about Triple H. Just like I told you, it seems like this is going to be really interesting. And it's going to be WWE's authority versus basically the bloodline, right? Like Triple H is going to have these guys, Cody, and he's fighting for the roster, while The Rock's authority is basically Paul Heyman, Roman Reigns, Uso, The Rock, and they're fighting for themselves. They just want to rule WWE and stay as champions and shit. Of course, he announced again that Cody is facing Roman Reigns. People cheered. There are some people that this decision will disappoint them. But here's the thing. It doesn't matter if you don't like that decision. Man, just go all in. Go all in. Talk about smelly penises. The Rock wants all of these beautiful people in the audience to chant, you have a smelly penis. So here's what we're going to do. This side of the audience will say, wash. And this side of the audience will say, your penis. That's basically every The Rock return promo nowadays. Then Nick Aldis took the microphone and they talked about the World Heavyweight Championship. He was even nice enough to give the microphone to Adam Pearce and announce the competitors. So basically we are getting people from SmackDown and Raw. And I feel like it's fair since Cody is from Raw facing a SmackDown champion. So it seems like, man, I don't want to cry, but these big balls having 2 people are really friendly with each other. They're fair. And it's Randy Orton, Bronson Reed, Kevin Owens, Logan Paul, AJ Styles, The Miz, Bobby Lashley, Ivar, Drew McIntyre, Sami Zayn, Dominic, LA Knight. Now, you may look at some of these people and feel like they should be in the match. match, but it's not necessarily possible because they will be facing each other. There is a reason for that as well. We're gonna talk about that in a second. And the first match is Drew McIntyre versus AJ Styles. We see Drew McIntyre, and again, it is great on the microphone. Thank you for proving to me with your wallets. You feel the same way about CM Punk. This t-shirt is selling better than CM Punk's t-shirt. Just crazy, but I mean, look, Drew, it's a great shirt. It's a great shirt. We appreciate you being a badass. And Drew McIntyre says he is going to main event WrestleMania, win the World Heavyweight Championship, and be a champion that this company deserves. A champion that's best for business. Bit of a booty licker, Drew, huh? Bit of a booty licker. I mean, you know Triple H is standing in that ring, and you're, you know, saying things like, I'm going to be best for business. Like, come on, man. Come on, that's No, seriously, I hope Drew McIntyre is winning that match. I made an entire video about this, and it seems like we're getting what we wanted. So we got AJ Styles versus Drew McIntyre. LA Knight was on commentary, which was really entertaining. So I absolutely love this match. What a way to kick off SmackDown. Not only with a great promo, you know, that answered some questions or teased something, and of course with a very, very entertaining match with high stakes. Now you might look at this match and feel like, well, why are these guys fighting? Shouldn't they both be in a match like this? And I do have an answer for that. Why is it not happening? So anyway, LA Knight was hilarious. He put the water bottle on the table and he just poured on AJ's face. And of course we got AJ fighting with LA Knight, which ultimately cost AJ Styles the match. Drew McIntyre won. He's going to Elimination Chamber, and here's the deal. You might look at AJ and LA Knight and feel like they are going to be in the match, but they won't be, simply because I feel like these two are facing each other at Elimination Chamber. Because now, it's pretty obvious, AJ is going to cost LA Knight the match. We got another qualifier, Bianca Belair versus Michin. So the match was short, but pretty entertaining in my opinion, although one of the most predictable matches you could ever imagine. So yes, Bianca Belair took the W right here, and she's going to Elimination Chamber. Gotta say though, it became a little bit unpredictable. So what are we getting at WrestleMania? Bianca versus Rhea or Becky versus Rhea? I feel like this could be a really, really good triple threat match, and I'm not necessarily saying that it won't happen. It seems like it's really possible. Not sure how, but it's really possible. Braun Breaker wants an advice from Triple H. He doesn't know what to pick, Raw or SmackDown. But Paul Heyman interrupts, and they didn't necessarily talk about anything. Just Paul Heyman announced they're gonna talk next week when we have Roman Reigns and The Rock. And the way he said it, like, The Rock. Then we see Bayley, and she talked about Damage Control. She appreciates the support from the audience. She was hurt by Damage Control. Everything changed once we got new members in Damage Control. What was interesting about this is that we got Dakota Kai, who didn't attack Bayley last week because she wasn't there. And Bayley is suspicious. She doesn't believe anything. Dakota Kai kinda knew what is happening, but she was in a tough position. She tried to tell Bayley, but didn't. And Bayley says, okay, whatever, just tell me where you stand right now. We got Damage Control. Everyone surrounded Bayley. It seems like Dakota Kai is going to attack Bayley, but she didn't. Instead, she targeted Damage Control. So it seems like Bayley and Dakota Kai are on the same page. This segment was great, but I feel like this could be a swerve. I feel like they could easily just set that up. You know, you're going to talk to Bayley, grab a chair, and pretend like you're attacking us and we're just going to leave. Just don't hit us. You know, I know it feels like I'm talking as if wrestling is real. I'm talking about the story, right? Do I need to explain that? I feel like I don't have to, right? I've seen some comments being like, you don't understand, this is all... I know it's... Kind of figured that out years ago. But this was actually pretty interesting, and it's going to be heartbreaking. Once Dakota Kai turns on Bayley, Bayley will be left with nothing. Nada. We got a very good Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate versus DIY match. Winner faces the Judgment Day at Elimination Chamber. Really, really enjoyed this one. As much as I don't get DIY's gimmick, I feel like they're so great yet. When they're together with this goofy ass music, colorful attires, I just don't get it. I don't see Tommaso Ciampa as that guy. I feel like Tommaso Ciampa is that guy who barely washes his balls because he doesn't care, which I love because he's a badass. Maybe not the best analogy, you know, I like Tommaso because he shouldn't wash his balls and stuff. But you probably know what I mean. I look at him more of a Triple H kind of character than, let's say, well, Shawn Michaels type of character. You know what I'm trying to say? So this was really, really entertaining. Lots of action, made it feel important, and of course, Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate won the match, which was expected. These two are being pushed to the moon at the moment, and They're so good in the ring, who could complain? They're really, really entertaining. We see Dominic and Kevin Owens announced that I'm gonna be facing you in the qualifying match, and I'm going to do it for the greatest luchador of all time, Rey Mysterio. R-Truth comes in, and he thinks that this is The Miz. You should be careful. Just make sure Nick doesn't see you. Nick Mysterio? Nick Aldis, because Kevin Owens is from Raw. And people chanted, "We want Truth." So R-Truth is really, really over again. Makes me so happy. I feel like this is where R-Truth is at its best. Not the goofy comedy with the dance breaks and shit. Why am I keep talking about this for like 5 years now? But this is funny. This is legit funny. Logan Paul doesn't want to compete in Utah in the Elimination Chamber. He should be treated like The Rock. He should be handed opportunities, but then he comes down and says, okay, I see it now. I'm going to become the World Heavyweight Champion at WrestleMania. Just out of curiosity, who am I facing? Again, Adam Pearce being a gentleman. This is your show. Announce it, Nick Aldis. You're going to be facing someone you know, The Miz, which is, I'm excited. We're going to see Logan Paul on Raw or SmackDown in a match. That's freaking amazing. For the first time, I believe. I love that idea, and it's a safe option, yet at the same time, this is one of the least interesting matches because we've seen it already. Out of all the possibilities, right? So on Raw, we're getting Bronson Reed versus Bobby Lashley, LA Knight versus Ivar. On SmackDown, we're getting Logan Paul versus The Miz, Kevin Owens versus Dominic Mysterio. Good television. I don't mind. And also on top of that, next week on SmackDown, The Rock is gonna be on the show. We eating good. And in the main event, we saw Sami Zayn versus Randy Orton, another qualifying match. So the story here is Randy Orton came back, he wants the opportunities, he's pretty over right now, all is good. But Sami Zayn also returned to the company, and he feels like he doesn't know where he belongs at this moment. He feels like he's not an underdog again, he's a contender, yet at the same time, he's kind of lost. He doesn't know what he's going to do at WrestleMania, so this is his chance. Well, unfortunately for Sami, after a very entertaining match, and Randy Orton still has it, and also after an amazing RKO, Randy Orton wins the match, so he's all happy, and Sami Zayn leaves just devastated, I guess. The show closes with Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton, which is one of the best rivalries of 2020, I believe. So yeah, that was your SmackDown. Sami Zayn left all disappointed. It's going to be interesting what Sami is going to do at WrestleMania. I think from now on, Sami needs to win all the matches and be like, I deserve an opportunity. I deserve an opportunity for the Intercontinental Championship. He's going to fight his way up to the championship match at WrestleMania. That is my prediction unless something changes. Maybe Sami is going to be in the World Heavyweight Championship match, a triple threat match. Nobody knows. But I think this could be a very interesting story. I'm just wondering if WWE could replicate that match from 2022, which is really, really unlikely. Was it 23? Well, whatever the case may be. So, thank you for watching this video. Appreciate your time. Like this video, subscribe if you already did.
My classmates are so smart. I have a hard time keeping up. Still, it's my hope I'll save someone's life someday. I'll help them, just like my doctor helped me. So with that, I'll keep on studying. I'm gonna make this dream of mine come true.
You've really grown up, Shizuko. And it's a great dream. Keep going, and I'm sure you'll get there.
Right! And hey, if you ever get sick, look me up. I'll help you get better. You never know.
Hey, thanks. If that happens, I don't know who to call.
Everything about this business was always it being unpredictable and the element of surprise. And we lost that with social media, you know, and the need for everybody to have everything spoiled. So the fact that right now of the what's gonna happen, it's exciting for everyone, including us. You know, we're backstage and that's exciting.
So I'm here with WWE Superstar Tag Team Champion and Senior Money in the Bank, Damien Priest. Thank you very much for joining us on the West Australian newspapers, WWE, Past to Perth.
My pleasure. What's going on?
It's just been announced this during the week that you are coming to defend your tag team titles at the Elimination Chamber at Optus Stadium. It must be excited about big stadium event.
Whenever we get a chance to do the big stadium events, it's always, exciting for that, because that we're just packing more fans, and let alone somewhere where we don't go normally, and having that many fans in an area that we're not accustomed to visiting, it's always extra special with the fans. They go there and do something extra special for them as well. So it's exciting all the way.
So obviously you were in the Elimination Chamber event last year. From a structural perspective, it's so different to look at. What's it like to be inside? Is it a violent sort of atmosphere when you're in there like that?
Yeah, it's insane. I always understood as a fan, like, it's cool, it looks crazy and brutal, but as a competitor, oof, it's every much that and more. I just remember thinking, why do people want to be in these matches? For me, I'm glad I got to do one, but I'm not jumping the first in line to get in another one.
So Bronson Reed put you through the plexiglass at one point. We saw Montez Ford hanging from the roof and dropping what must have been 5 meters. Like, you can do some crazy things in there, can't you?
Yes. And, man, kudos to Montez for having the guts to do something like that. I remember early in the day I got in, they were testing some of the stuff out, so they put it down, and I got there early, and I just wanted to see if, get some ideas, so I climbed one side, and I looked down, and I climbed right back down, and I said, no shot, I'm climbing. I'm not really the best when it comes to heights, so I had a lot of ideas till I got in there, and all the ideas went out the window.
That's crazy sort of place. Now, it is, for those people who are watching this, we are recording it at 11 p.m. Perth time on Thursday, February 8th, so we're a few hours before the WrestleMania press conference to announce things, but the storylines are going to really come into Elimination Chamber for WrestleMania. Yours is intriguing at the moment from a Money in the Bank perspective. You've almost cashed in 5 times. It feels like we're all just waiting for you to challenge Jeff Cole, given he's got an actual knee injury, but that doesn't look like that's going to happen. Do you know, what are you expecting for your single storyline for the next couple of years?
Well, I mean, obviously, I'm based on Raw, and being that Seth Rollins is the champion, unfortunately, he's not medically cleared, so I can't cash in right now, because officially he can't be in a match. So I kind of have to just wait till he's cleared, or, if I find myself on the other show, it'd be different. But that champion is not really around all the time either, so it's one of those things that I'm just, biding my time. I still have to July 1st, I have plenty of time. So I don't want to risk doing something I shouldn't, like you said, 5 times I've attempted but didn't cash in, and I'd rather that than a failed cash in, right? So I'm just being extra careful right now, because this is not going to go to waste. In my head, I have to become world champion, whether it's on Raw or SmackDown. Either way, I have to become a major title holder, and I have to be extra careful about it. So I still have time. And then obviously we got WrestleMania coming up, but that's always a good time, around that, whether it's Mania, the SmackDown before, the Raw after, it's always exciting time, so you never know what can happen.
Is it exciting as a performer to know that there's so many angles that you can do? It's been fun watching Indy come, out it goes, changes all the time, the way it's been done. Has it been exciting to have that keeping people on the edge of their seats?
Oh yeah, it's every time, there's a champion in the ring and I come out, you could feel like the gasp in the air, because everybody's kind of like, is this going to happen right now? It's really cool. And like, I get goosebumps just thinking about it, just because it's what we wanted out of this business. We wanted that emotion, for somebody to feel strongly about, your presence, and that's where we're at. So for me, it's exactly what I wanted. It's very exciting.
Remarkable year for yourself and the Judgment Day in general, the way it's all gone. You look so tight as a group, like you're really good mates and having fun with each other. I'm a big believer in whether it's sport or entertainment or anything, that who you hang with is what will define your success, and you're in a really good group of people. Like, does that help with the way it's all worked out?
Absolutely. It's weird, like, you could pick, who would you put in a group with you? Of course, everybody wants to pick like the top people, right? Which I would say we're all top people anyway, but this group of misfits that got thrown together and we became so close. Some of us were friends before, but obviously in the Judgment Day, you know, we're around each other all the time, even off camera, even when we're, you know, just traveling and doing the drives, you know, we're in the cars together, and we become legit like a family. It's not just for entertainment purposes. So everything you see on screen is natural and organic because that's the way we really are around each other. Maybe we're a little goofier without the cameras, but that'd be the only difference, that we have a little bit more laughing situations. But besides that, I mean, I love the fact that I get to work with and travel with like my buddies and my family. It's definitely changed how we feel about work. You know, when we show up, we're just so happy because we get to do this together all the time, and I think it shows, and you can see that through the lens.
So have you gone out of your own way to make sure you're spending time with each other to build that rapport to help on camera, or has it just been that you have to be together because you're spending so much time on camera together?
Yeah, I don't think we went out of our way. It's just the way it happened, you know. We started traveling together, then it's like, all right, you guys want to get something to eat? Okay, we're going to the gym together. Hey, there's a tattoo shop. You want to get a tattoo together? Hey, there's a mall. You want to go shopping? You know, whatever it is. Like, it's happened organically how close we've gotten, which I think makes it even better that we didn't force it. It was, okay, we're in a group together. We're going to fight alongside each other. Okay. But then everything else came organically, and now it's like we want to defend each other. Not just because we're in a group together, but because we actually care about one another. It's very special.
Obviously, Rhea Ripley is so important to Australia and to the Elimination Chamber itself. She'll be up against Nia Jax. You performed in your home country and experienced the craziness of going back to Puerto Rico. What do you think it would be like for her to step out over here, and have you spoken to her about how she's feeling as this builds up for her?
Of course. You know, it's one thing that's for me, you know, I get to go to Puerto Rico, you know, every so often. You know, it's not as far. It's a lot easier to travel to. And the show in Puerto Rico, while, you know, for me it was very special, and what it meant to me is, I mean, it's still top of the list as far as like things that I didn't realize were important to me, and that's the most important thing I've ever done in my career. But the show wasn't about me. You know, it didn't revolve around me. It was, you know, more Bad Bunny, more the guys involved in the main event. You know, this show in Perth is about Rhea, and I'm so happy for her. And she is very giddy. She's very excited. You know, she loves home, and you know, she's been going crazy, like wanting to bring myself and Dom and the rest of the crew out to Australia. And now she's like, we're gonna go and we get to beat up people and have fun. And like, we're talking about like getting in early so we could go explore and do fun things before the show. She's very excited, and she can't wait to show off her country to the world.
Speaking of Rhea, when I interviewed her in December, I mentioned how she came to WA a decade ago to perform at the Coburn News Centre for New Horizons Pro Wrestling. I was at their outdoor show on Saturday, and it bucketed down with rain for about 5 minutes, which was unfortunate because we hadn't actually seen rain since November. So kudos to Jared Slate and Ryan Allen for continuing their event and making sure they were entertaining for everyone despite the risk of injury. They are back at Coburn on Saturday, so head down there if you can. They will also be at the Kenwick Football Club on March 23. Truth, will he be coming on over as well? Like, it's such a fun angle that it's come out with, and it looks like you guys are having a great time with it. Like, how did it eventuate, and what's it like?
Who knows where Truth is going? I don't know if he's going to Australia, Japan. Who knows where he's going to end up if he gets on a plane. It's another one of those crazy things that by accident we just have a dynamic that the people have been going crazy about. And who would have thought our Truth with a Judgment Day? It makes no sense whatsoever. Like, to any interaction, and like, I don't know, on paper you would just cringe because it just doesn't make sense.
So you're 41, which means that you would have been an impressionable teenager in the mid-90s when the Attitude Era was on, when the Monday Night Wars were on. We see a bit of Scott Hall in your character, we see a bit of Undertaker in your character, we see a bit of NWO, we see a bit of DX. How much have you taken from that 90s era?
I mean, you just said it. Everything. I like to think that things in general that influence me that I'm into, whether it's movies, you know, wrestlings, other sports, you know, whatever. So, yeah, big time. You know, you just named everybody who, you know, at least a few people who really influenced me. You know, the NWO and DX, hands down. And then individually, when you look at Scott Hall and Nash, Undertaker, Sting, like these guys were the people that I was like crazy about, and even Rock. You know, there's just so many people that I just studied, and I didn't want to be exactly like them. I didn't want to do exactly what they did, but I wanted to aspects of myself to be, you know, influenced from that. And, you know, it's like it worked for them. Why wouldn't it work for me? You know, especially taking little things here and there. And, I mean, I'm here, so I feel like something worked. I did something right. And I owe it to, you know, all my heroes growing out, you know, from that era. Like, if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. Just in general, just the idea of what they were and how they made me feel emotionally. I was like, I want people to feel that emotion because of me, and that was my goal. And that's why I became a wrestler.
So that era was so fun to watch because you didn't know what was going to happen next, and there was blurred lines between reality off screen and what was happening on screen. Past couple of weeks, it feels like that's back. Like the fans are losing their minds over, oh, why did this happen to Cody, or why is Rock doing this, all that sort of stuff. Can you sense a bit of 90s stuff in this era over the past couple of weeks, especially?
Favorite thing about this business was always it being unpredictable and the element of surprise. And we lost that with social media, you know, and the need for everybody to have everything spoiled. So the fact that right now of the what's gonna happen, it's exciting for everyone, including us. You know, we're backstage and we don't know, and that's exciting. And you can see everybody's passion. Not that it was not there, but it's like an extra, you know, extra flame just got lit. You know, everybody's kind of like, okay, here we go, WrestleMania season, and I don't know, it's just an excitement in the air. I think in the crowd and in the backstage, because of that vibe, you know, which is like you said, the Attitude Era, where it was who knew what was going to happen on a day-to-day, and I think that's what it feels like right now. Like, as something as simple as the press conference today, I'm going to be tuning in because I want to know what's up.
You've got a really unique background in martial arts. Can you tell us how that's impacted your wrestling career and what you've been able to take from it and use throughout WWE?
I think, you know, if you watch my work from the get-go, you can tell how much martial arts has influenced my style, and it helped me get to where I am. Just the physical aspect of it, it's probably helped my body last as long as it has, just because of, you know, the training and whatnot. Granted, my flexibility is not what it used to be, so I don't throw as many kicks and stuff like that anymore, but it clearly had a huge influence, and it still continues to do so, and I still try to. That goes with what I was saying about influences and taking what pertains to you. I've always loved martial arts, and so I incorporated into who Danny Priest, movies, music, you know, obviously, you know, idols from yesteryear, and incorporate everything to make up what it is Damien Priest.
As we said, the Elimination Chamber is huge for WrestleMania storylines, and you need to buy your tickets. We know with inflation and interest rates, it's been challenging for all of us. And let's face it, 10 million people who had Optus couldn't get on to buy tickets on the day that the tickets became on sale. But prices have been slashed if you haven't noticed lately, if you haven't checked. They are fair income bargains right now. So go on to ticketmaster.com.au, have a look. It's a fair chance to get some amazing tickets you actually think you'll be able to get. So make the most of this opportunity. You can also watch it on binge if you can't get there. Remember, it is Saturday, February 24th at Optus Stadium. Get there if you can. Buy your tickets and watch it on binge. Read your news about this in the West Australian newspaper and at thewest.com.au. Damien Priest, thank you so much for your time. We can't wait to have you in Perth where we can all rise for the Judgment Day.
Can't wait to be there. Appreciate it.
times were over. Vince McMahon cut a famous promo on the 24th of June 2002 episode of Raw, gathering the wrestlers in what he called his ring to demand ruthless aggression. This turned out to be something of a self-own. Vince knew that the good times of the Attitude Boom were dead, and he all but acknowledged it. So too did Steve Austin, who in a scathing rant buried the direction of the company. Appearing on Bite This, Austin, fuming to high heaven by the end of May, threw a Molotov cocktail at Creative, stating that the bottom line is that everything sucks. He called the writing piss poor and added that it could have been a hell of a lot better. It must have been bad, because Bruce Pritchard, not exactly known for his spine, told Kevin Dunn that he, Vince McMahon and Triple H had crossed the line with the infamous Katie Vick storyline, and he was absolutely correct. But when a notorious yes man like Brother Love is saying that you messed up, well, you messed up. Number 6. Hulk Hogan was an even worse draw than you think. No matter how much lotion he applied to the rubbery buttocks of Hulkamania, 2002 was a bad year for the Hulkster, brother. WWE's botched NWO reboot ended up not mattering, because fans were ultimately dying to see their version of Hulk Hogan back, as evidenced by the incredible atmosphere at WrestleMania 18. But even that was a premonition. Hogan vs Rock was an incredible match, but it was no Rock Austin, Mania dropping around 200,000 pay-per-view buys compared to the year before. With Hogan on top, Backlash and Judgment Day both posted year-over-year declines. Hogan main eventing SmackDown in May then drew the lowest rated episode in the show's history up to that point. And later that month, Hogan's first televised singles match with Ric Flair in WWE ended up drawing fewer viewers than the match that came after it, which wasn't Steve Austin versus The Rock, or a match anywhere similar, by the way. It was Bubba Ray Dudley and Trish Stratus versus Jazz and Steve Richards. Sorry Hulk, but you weren't a draw, mate. Number 5. Ruthless aggression was a myth. At least when it comes to John Cena, that is. It's a misconception that John Cena showing ruthless aggression against Kurt Angle launched him to stardom, but even WWE concedes that this isn't quite true. Cena played a one-dimensional Raw prospect and was exposed badly after he was no longer positioned as a surging fan favourite. When WWE stopped telling people to care about Cena, Cena didn't show them that they should. That's fine, of course, he was young, raw, and really green, but it's no less true. Cena was a clunky, basic rookie, and even the man himself didn't think he had ruthless aggression. WWE stopped applying the phrase almost immediately. Number 4. Vince Russo returned. In June, a full month after Vince McMahon had already gotten bored of ruthless aggression as a concept, the old bugger scrambled. Stars from bygone eras were either unavailable or ineffective. WWE's developmental prospects didn't exactly spark an overnight boom period either. So, in Vince McMahon's dumb mind, there was only one thing for it: bring back Russo. This terrible experiment lasted about a fortnight, if that, taking a punt on a work-shy maverick who'd long since given up and had badly exposed himself in WCW. WWE spent Lord knows how much money on a guy who stunned everyone in the locker room with criminal ignorance on the current product. According to former writer Brian Gewirtz, McMahon was so stunned by Russo's idiocy and an alleged pitch to repeat the invasion angle for goodness sake that Vince actually apologised for bringing that asshole back. And those are his words, not mine. Number 3. The ladder match problem started earlier than you think. Ladder matches are amongst the most oversaturated and overused stipulations in all of wrestling today. The rot actually set in a long time ago. As an example, and keep in mind how huge a physical toll these matches take on the people who perform them, does anyone actually remember the 6-minute 45-second ladder match between Rob Van Dam and Jeff Hardy that opened the 22nd of July episode of Raw? The answer probably is no. And when you can't remember a special attraction, the attraction is no longer special. Hardy versus RVD was a title unification match as well, hammering home the historic damage that WWE has done to this once special stipulation. Number 2. WWE didn't have to get the F out, at least in the USA. The World Wrestling Federation became World Wrestling Entertainment in 2002, but it didn't really need to. In 1994, the two WWFs, the Wrestling One and the Panda One, came to an agreement. As long as Vince McMahon's company was not the WWF outside of the US, then the events of 2002 wouldn't have happened. If Vince McMahon had marketed the WWF as something else in the UK, which isn't that unusual, hello TJ/TK Maxx, the charity wouldn't have tried to sue him. In the end, they did that because Vince persistently violated the agreement by promoting the theft to the WWF in the UK. Vince tried to no-sell this, the wildlife dude thought he was taking the piss, and 8 years later they decided they'd had enough. In 2002, Vince McMahon was taught a lesson by a panda, but unfortunately not the one from South Park. And at number 1, the first ever WWE match was Trish Stratus versus Jazz. In addition to working the first ever women's main event in WWE history by doing battle with Lita 8 years later, Trish Stratus also made history in 2002. By virtue of opening with the 6th of May episode of Raw, she technically wrestled in the first ever WWE match. Trish took a 3-minute no DQ loss to Jazz when Stevie Richards showed up and kicked her in the face. Not an ideal match to stand as a historical landmark, but this era of WWE wasn't exactly synonymous with taste. 2003 was a weird year for WWE. The roster, high on talent and big names, yielded shockingly few dream matches. Pay-per-views were weak. WrestleMania's buy rate was some 300,000 below expectations. Goldberg's WWE Dream Run turned into a nightmare, and the McMahons came back to TV, clogging up more time than ever before. But it wasn't all bad, particularly between the ropes, and there were plenty of backstage goings-on to keep fans entertained away from the ring. So let's take a look at some of the stories that flew under the radar in this weird, wacky year. I'm Andy for What Culture Wrestling, and here are 10 things you didn't know about WWE in 2003. Number 10. Eddie Guerrero snaps at a fan. 28th of September 2003. We're in Winnipeg, Canada, and the Basham brothers are wrestling Los Guerreros in a house show when Eddie had a beer poured over him while he was selling near the barricade. He, quite understandably, lost it, hopping the barricade, chasing the fan in question, and he threw a few punches as well, but fortunately, none of them actually connected. Out came Jack Lanza and Arn Anderson to calm the thing down with a boatload of security in tow. Now, Eddie did apologise and he did finish the match, but he had more than a few words for the fans' friends who were sitting in the front row with their dumbass pal. Guerrero got away with it, but imagine the piss storm if those punches had connected. Number 9. Rodney Mack kicks the Hurricane's head in. Big Rodney was a real-life legitimate badass, as the Hurricane would find out backstage at a Knoxville, Tennessee house show in September, with the superhero laying out his idea for a match that would pit him and Rosie against Mack and Mark Henry. Mack
will eat it up. Sadly, Canyon, who had been suffering from bipolar disorder, committed suicide on April 2nd, 2010. He was 40 years old. Number 3, Sabu was trying to get fired. RVD wasn't the only ECW wrestler pissing WWE management off in late 2006. RVD's buddy Sabu, who many didn't give a chance in WWE to begin with, was also ruffling a lot of feathers backstage. The feeling in November was that Sabu was lucky to still have a job with the company. The first strike against him came when he gave John Cena a black eye during an angle on Raw in July. Later in the year, however, Sabu began showing up late to house shows and kept falling asleep in the backstage area, for which he was jobbed out to Umaga, and then he blew off some promotional commitments.
Got the wrong guy. Take care. That do you?
Oh my gosh! It's Kyrgyzstan! You just vanished into thin air one day! I thought you kicked the bucket somewhere! You really ought to show your face more often! Oh wow, it's so good to see you! How's it going?
It's been going. What about you, Cody?
Sure is! In fact, we're gonna have our...
Oh, yeah?
Well, no.
Yo, you Kansai clowns still haven't hit the road? Look, you people are the problem here. Outside to hear me? You old hags got no place here.
Here we go.
Who's
Some guy from one of the rival clubs. Thanks to him.
Come on.
And...
Rude bitch. Fine.
How are you gonna do that?
Who the hell are you?
One of their hires, as far as I know. Comrocha doesn't roll any which way. You've got no right to mouth off about how things work around here.
Right back at you, old man. Whatever. Guess we'll have to beat your... I'm gonna send all you panic. This ain't gonna be good. No begging for mercy now.
In the midst of this chaotic WrestleMania season already, we're not even through the Elimination Chamber yet. We got The Rock, we got Cody, we got Roman, we got Seth, we got what is the main event going to be at WrestleMania? Is The Rock going to be involved? Which direction are they going in? Is it a work? Is it a shoot? All this hoopla over WrestleMania season. But at the heart of the matter, no matter what happens on TV, when all of the smoke clears, we're eventually going to go back to the most important matter in all of WWE, probably the biggest story in the history of the company, and that is the Vince McMahon sexual allegations lawsuit filed by Janelle Grant. Now, I know everybody wants to talk about the creative side of things, but at the end of the day, this is not going away. And there's going to be more news coming out on it. More people are going to speak up in and out of the company. And when this goes to trial, everybody's going to be talking about it, no matter what's happening with The Rock on TV or Cody finishes his story. More people are speaking up. And this is coming from an article that was uncovered about the allegations to Ashley Massaro. Allegations she made against Vince McMahon and WWE. If you guys don't want to hear about any of the sexual assault in this report, you guys can clearly click away, and I'll see you guys when we get clears. We're eventually going to go back to the most important matter in all of WWE, probably the biggest story in the history of the company, and that is the Vince McMahon sexual allegations lawsuit filed by Janelle Grant. Now, I know everybody wants to talk about the creative side of things, but at the end of the day, this is not going away. And there's going to be more news coming out on it. More people are going to speak up in and out of the company. And when this goes to trial, everybody's going to be talking about it, no matter what's happening with The Rock on TV or Cody finishes his story. More people are speaking up. And this is coming from an article that was uncovered about the allegations to Ashley Massaro.
allegations she made against Vince McMahon and WWE. You guys don't want to hear about any of the sexual assault in this report. You guys can clearly click away, and I'll see you guys when we get back to the regular news and rumors on the podcast. But prior to 2019, former WWE talent Ashley Massaro, who took her own life, was one of many talents involved in a concussion lawsuit against WWE helmed by attorneys Constantine Kairos and Erica Mirabella. Now, as a result of the suit, or a part of the suit, which was later dismissed in 2018, Massaro spoke to Mirabella extensively about her time in WWE to be surmised as an affidavit. Their conversation was covered well beyond the extent of what the suit covered, and now previously unreleased statements from those discussions have come to light, of course they have, featuring new allegations against Vince McMahon. As a report from Vice News, Massaro alleged to have witnessed McMahon prey on female WWE talent in the locker room, but ignored her until she featured, or was featured, on the cover of Playboy magazine. He says this, and I quote, "During my time with WWE, I had observed Vince McMahon making out with other divas in the locker room, but he never paid any attention to me, and I assumed I was not his type. This changed after my Playboy cover was released. I was fortunate enough to be allowed to fly on the company jet and stay at the same hotel as the executives for a period of time so that I could get home faster to spend more time with my daughter." Massaro went on to recall a particularly scary incident involving McMahon, where McMahon allegedly attempted to get her alone with him in his hotel room at night, even going as far as to continually call her hotel room and her personal mobile phone. Eventually, she had to get advice from Kevin Dunn on how to deal with the situation. So Kevin Dunn, you know, it's not going to be outright in anything that has come out yet, or from Kevin Dunn specifically, but as you see here, Kevin Dunn was very well aware of all of the situations regarding Vince McMahon. If Ashley Massaro went to Kevin Dunn, what else does Kevin Dunn know of? What else is Kevin Dunn hiding? Why did Kevin Dunn just get up and leave before legitimately all this shitstorm happened at the beginning of the year with Vince McMahon, the Wall Street Journal, Janelle Grant? He got out as an excuse because he didn't want to take orders from the new administration, and he wanted to do things his own way, as he was doing under Vince McMahon. Then we find out the pieces to the puzzle fit pretty well. Kevin Dunn said goodbye to WWE, even though they asked him to stay through WrestleMania. As soon as that Wall Street Journal shitstorm hit in the beginning of the month, Kevin Dunn was gone. So Ashley went to Kevin Dunn on how to deal with the situation. That man knows way more than anybody else, I guarantee it. On one of those occasions, Vince was attempting to get me alone with him in his hotel room late at night, and I felt extraordinarily uncomfortable. He began calling the hotel room phone and my cell phone nonstop. That is, I guess the perks of being